What's up guys, CEO here with week 12 of the NES. This week we're going up against New England Tentacruels, coached by JTN2000. Disclaimer before we get into this, we had the battle on time, but I'm recording this video super late. I just haven't had time to record. Sorry. I'm hoping to have 2 battles up this week. The battle against the Tentacruels that I'm recording right now, and then the battle against the Luxrays, which I'm hoping to have sometime this week. So get looking forward to that, I guess. But since I'm so late, I'm going to probably try to rush through this video, especially Teambuilder, a little bit faster. This is probably one of my hardest weeks team building, actually. The Tentacruels have a team that's very similar in build to mine, and they have a lot of things that kind of check my common threats. I also have things that check their common threats, I guess, too. So it's going to be a good game. I'm pretty terrified of Zapdos just because of how ridiculously fat it gets. And since I don't have any rock or ice stab, it's going to be pretty hard to OHKO it. I have an answer prepared, but I'm not really expecting to be able to set it up in most circumstances, to be honest. Yeah. Mamoswine also does quite a lot to my team. Between ice and ground, it hits a lot of my team for ice, ground, and the coverage that it gets. It hits my team for a lot of super effective damage. So I'm pretty scared of it this week, especially an offensive one. A Stealth Rock one could actually also be kind of annoying depending on my team build. But yeah. Snorlax is super fat. A Curse Lax set could be kind of scary. It actually ended up being the reason why I wanted spoilers to bring Breloom this week. I didn't want to just have him get a good switch in on like a favorable matchup or whatever and then just curse in my face and then I lose. Gardevoir is a pretty scary choice scarfer. I have things on my team to deal with it, but I have to be careful because it hits pretty hard and it actually has pretty good special defense, so I can't really expect to kill it super easily, especially. Jellicent is a really good wall for my team. Between Water and Ghost, it pretty much lines up very nicely with a lot of my current walls and stuff. I say current because I have an announcement to make at the end of the battle. But yeah, Armaldo is actually something that was on our team. I dropped Armaldo for Xatu a couple weeks ago. So I know him pretty well. He's pretty fat and hits very, very hard, but he's very, very slow. Kind of like Ramble, I guess, but for Bug and Rock stab instead of Fairy stab. He's also a pretty good rapid spinner, which his team doesn't have. And given how many things he has that are weak to rocks, I think it'd actually be a pretty good bring for him this week. Megazord X is one of the most terrifying Megas to have to worry about. I have an answer on my team for if it gets Dragon Dance, but if it gets 2, it pretty much just runs through any team. There's not really a whole lot that you can do if it gets up to that point, so I have to be careful. He actually hasn't brought it like all the time, but he's brought it enough that I obviously have to be very prepared for it. Lucario actually is also something that I could see him bringing this week. Steel ground or steel fighting does quite a lot to my team, especially since it has Justified. I had a problem with Cobalion a couple of weeks ago. Lucario's a very similar thing, except it can also hit specially and set up on both sides. So I have to be pretty careful. Volcanion is also a good offensive threat for my team. I have Vaporeon, which pretty much walls it, but spoilers again, I'm actually not bringing it this week just because it didn't really line up with a whole lot of other things that he was bringing. So I know he's probably gonna be bringing either Volcanion or Jellicent. I'll get into that in a second. But I'm leaning a little bit more towards Jellicent because of how much it actually walls, as opposed to Volcanion, which basically just gets a good hit in and then kind of dies, to be honest. Meloetta is something that I'm kind of, or Melota, I guess, if you're looking at his stats. I pulled these from the Google Doc, by the way, so I actually didn't check that and correct it. Oops. But Meloetta is something that I'm kind of familiar with from lower tier battling. Surprisingly bulky, if you're not prepared for it. Pirouette form is uncommon, but a common enough thing that I'm prepared for it in this week. I would expect more of just like a special attacking one, and I hope to God I don't get put to sleep by Relic Song, but yeah. And finally Ariados, mainly just there as a sticky Weber, but with the way that his speed tiers line up with me, I have to be very careful around it. I can't let it get sticky webs up, and if it gets sticky webs up, I can't let him stay up. My team outspeeds his in a lot of key places, but not by much, so I have to be careful. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to the other thing now, and I will continue. Now. Alright, I'm gonna have to go through this part pretty fast, but I don't think that I have a very good team matchup this week, to be perfectly honest. I went through about 4 different teams before finally settling on this one, and to be honest, I wasn't 100% sold on this one, but this is the best thing that I could bring to counter all 11 of his Pokemon, as well as kind of gearing it towards the team I thought he was going to bring of Megazord X, Zapdos, Mamoswine. What did I have written down? I had those 3, Snorlax, and then either Jellicent and Volcanion, or Armaldo, or Ariados, or Meloetta, I guess. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really feel comfortable preparing for a team of 6 specifically, because it seemed like every time I finally prepared for something else was a problem for me, to be perfectly honest. So I'm just going to try to get through this now. My original answer to Megazord X was a thick fat Miltank, which seemed to be doing pretty well, but didn't really have any offensive presence and kind of just took hits and then died. My second answer in practice to a Megazord X was Vaporeon, but Zapdos very easily countered it, and it was pretty hard to keep alive with the rest of his walls. So my third option was actually a Rocky Helmet Intimidate Granbull, because I figure I can at least switch in. Play Rough would only be neutral since it's Fire Dragon and Fire Resist Fairy. So I'm instead just ignoring Play Rough and just going to go for Rock Slide and Willow Kick, which hits a significant amount of his team. And then Toxic and Heal Bell are just there for residual damage. If I can predict Zapdos or Snorlax or one of his other walls coming in on a switch and go for a Toxic, that'd be nice. And Heal Bell's just there in case anything else gets burned by Jellicent or paralyzed by Zapdos or something like that, I guess. Unfortunately, even with like near max, it's still honestly not super fat, but that's okay. Next we have Thundurus, who is going to be Choice Scarf this week, mainly because with a Choice Scarf I outspeed everything on his team. And more importantly, with a Choice Scarf I outspeed a +1 Mega Charizard, and HP Rock will do about 60%, I think. So as long as I have any kind of damage on it, which my main plan if Zard switches in is to kind of just sack whatever I'm doing to make sure that it doesn't get a free Dragon Dance. It's not the best answer, but it's the answer that most reliably worked for me in practice, I guess. I'm terrified to run Focus Blast, honestly, because you can ask Super Nerd, but I have terrible luck with anything under like 85% accuracy. Like just all the time. but I have to run Focus Blast because it's the only thing that reliably hits Mamoswine, and if he starts using that as a switch in after he finds out I'm Scarfed, to try to block Volt Switch or something, I want to be able to predict. And Dark Pulse is for Meloetta, and Gardevoir neutrally. And I guess Jellicent if I want to stay in and do damage to it, as opposed to just switching out. But really this is just kind of meant to do overall damage to things and allow other people to clean up, such as Scizor. Lumberry's there, actually mostly because if he brings a static Zapdos and I'm in switching against it, I'm probably going to get paralyzed. Static only has a 30% chance to paralyze, but again, I just get that all the time. But Bullet Punch and U-Turn just allow me good initiative, either priority or initiative, I guess. Knockoff doesn't actually do a ton to other things besides Jellicent, but getting rid of a Choice Scarf on something would be nice. Just make sure I don't do that against Lucario, I guess. And Defog's there in case I'm not able to block Sticky Webs from Ariados and need to get rid of it right away. The spread allows me to, it's a 2-hit KO, it's a 2-hit KO on Jellicent, I believe, with Knockoff. Bullet Punch is always going to 2-hit KO Gardevoir unless I weaken it and stuff. And it does a pretty decent amount to Armaldo also. Scarfer number 2 this week. I'm not super comfortable bringing 2 Choice Scarfers, to be honest. But it's something that I think I need to do this week because if I can hyper offense him when he brings a bulkier team, I think I'll have the advantage. Fingers crossed, I guess. But Spore and Mach Punch, I feel like I bring these all the time on Breloom, but it's because they're very good moves on Breloom. I don't think he's going to be bringing anything with safety goggles or anything to absorb Spore, so if I need to get a clutch sleep on something, I'll have that option. Mach Punch is obviously priority. Force Palm, I guess I can highlight that since that's not a common move. It's a fighting move that's boosted by Technician, so it's actually basically a base 90 power move. I don't really get to show that off very often, but since Technician boosts the power of 60 power moves or less, it's basically like it's a base 90 power move with a 30% chance to paralyze. So it's kind of like a fighting type Scald, but for paralysis, so it's kind of cool. And then Rock Tomb is there to lower speed. It's, I believe, a 2-hit KO on especially defensive Zapdos, but I'm not 100% sure if it is on a physically defensive Zapdos. But with the spread that I have here, I will outspeed everything on his team that's not Scarfed. I don't outspeed a Zard after +1, but that's okay. A Rock Tomb's still going to do a lot to it, and if I have to sack, I'll sack. So, moving on, we have offense threat number 5 of the week, pretty much. Because like I said, I'm going very hyper offensive this week. Life Orb, Fluorite, I figure I can try to hopefully bluff a Scarf like I've done in previous weeks and get some damage off with Earth Power or Ice Beam. Ice Beam's a very solid 2-hit KO or possible 1-hit KO if I get prior damage on Zapdos, which is nice. Earth Power just does a lot of damage to pretty much everything, honestly. Even the stuff that resists it, it still does a ton of damage to. Stealth Rocks are there because, I haven't mentioned this, but he has 5 rock weaknesses. I really wish that I had a bug type or a rock type on my team, such as Armaldo, ironically enough, because he has a ton of weaknesses that I could have exploited with that, but I'll hope to exploit with rocks. It just kind of sucks because Zapdos is a very reliable defogger, because it's very fat. So I kind of have to lure it in, kill it, and then set up rocks in most situations, at least to keep them up, I guess. And then Sucker Punch is just there in case I need priority to get damage on stuff. And finally we have Mega Skrillex, the Mega Absol again. I'm bringing Super Luck again to raise critical hit stage by 1. So it makes it a little bit more likely for me to get a crit on the first move that I do. It's probably not going to come in handy at all, but Swords Dance Rock Slide is a 1-hit KO on specially defensive Zapdos, and it does like 90% to a physically defensive Zapdos. So I'm hoping to be able to set up a Swords Dance on something a little bit slower. Maybe even just like Swords Dance and Superpower the Snorlax to OHKO it or something. I don't know. But after I Mega Evolve, I'll be able to outspeed everything on his team very comfortably with this spread. And since Mega Absol's so much faster than everything that's not Scarfed, I guess, it allows me to make him a little bit bulkier than normal this week, which is nice. Alright, so that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I'm going to switch to the battle now and record that, so I'll be right back.